I want you to picture this for a second. It's late afternoon, the kind of gray, heavy afternoon where everything feels slightly off, and I'm sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot, gripping the steering wheel like it's the only thing keeping my life from completely falling apart. I had exactly $42 in my wallet, my phone was at 7%, and 10 minutes earlier, my manager had told me with a smile that felt almost rehearsed that I was being let go due to restructuring. No warning, no backup plan, no safety net, just a handshake and a cardboard box with my name written on it in black marker. Yeah, that happened. I remember staring straight ahead and laughing under my breath, not because it was funny, but because when things pile up that hard, sometimes laughing is the only way you don't scream. I was 31 years old, college degree, years of experience, and somehow still one bad afternoon away from losing everything. And what made it worse was knowing how people saw me. The tired clothes, the old car, the way my confidence had been chipped away over time. People had already decided who I was. Unreliable, replaceable, not worth much. You know what I mean. This didn't start that day. It never does. It started years earlier when I took a job that paid less than I deserved because I was told I should be grateful just to be there. It started when coworkers talked over me in meetings and my ideas came out of someone else's mouth 5 minutes later and suddenly they were brilliant. It started when my boss joked about me not looking like management material and everyone laughed like it was harmless. I learned to swallow it, to work harder to prove myself quietly. I thought that's what strength looked like. Turns out, all it did was teach people they could treat me however they wanted. That afternoon, sitting in my car, something shifted. Not in a dramatic movie way, not lightning or music swelling, just this quiet, heavy realization settling in my chest. If I kept letting people define my worth, this was going to be my life forever, scraping by, apologizing for existing, being overlooked, and I was exhausted. Deep down, bone tired. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went inside the store, bought the cheapest coffee I could find, sat at a small table near the window, and opened my laptop. I started applying for jobs, not the safe ones, not the ones I thought I was supposed to settle for, but the ones I'd always talked myself out of. Positions that said leadership. Positions that felt out of reach. Every application felt like throwing a paper airplane into a storm, but I kept going, because doing nothing felt worse. A few days later, I got a call that changed everything, or at least it felt like it might. A company I'd applied to almost as a joke wanted an interview. The role was competitive, the pay was good, and honestly, I didn't think I fit their image. But I went anyway, wearing my best jacket, rehearsing answers in the mirror, telling myself not to shrink. The interview room was glass-walled, modern, intimidating. 2 interviewers sat across from me. One of them barely looked up from my resume. The other smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. They asked about my experience, my past roles, and then came the question I knew was coming. Why should we take a chance on you? There it was, that familiar edge, the polite version of doubt, and for a split second the old me almost answered. The version of me who would say I'm a hard worker, I learn fast, I just need an opportunity. But something inside me snapped into place. I leaned forward and said calmly, "You wouldn't be taking a chance on me. You'd be correcting a mistake other companies made by underestimating me." The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet. The kind where something lands. I talked about results, about projects I carried without credit, about problems I solved while others took bows. I didn't beg. I didn't soften it. I told the truth. And when the interview ended, I walked out shaking not from fear, but from adrenaline. For once, I hadn't made myself smaller to be palatable. Days passed, then a week. I tried not to hope, but hope has a way of sneaking in. And then my phone rang. They offered me the job. A better title, better pay, benefits, respect. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall for a full minute before it hit me. I cried. Not the pretty kind. The ugly, relieved, finally exhaling kind. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Winning doesn't magically erase the past. When I started that job, I wasn't walking into applause. I was walking into skepticism. People whispered. Some smiled too politely. Others made jokes about how I must have interviewed really well. One guy actually said, "Wow, didn't expect you to land something like this," like it was a compliment. There was one person in particular, a senior colleague, who made it clear he thought I didn't belong. Every meeting, he'd challenge me, interrupt me, correct me even when I was right. He had that tone, the one that sounds reasonable on the surface but is dripping with condescension. Early on, it rattled me. I'd replay conversations in my head, wondering if I should have said something different. Then came the project. A big one. High stakes, tight deadline. The kind that could make or break reputations. We were assigned to work together. He took control, immediately dismissing my input steering decisions without discussion. The old pattern tried to repeat itself, and for a moment I felt that familiar urge to step back, let him drive, avoid conflict. But I didn't. I documented everything. I asked clear questions in meetings. I followed up in writing. I made my contributions impossible to ignore. And when his approach started to fail, when deadlines slipped and clients pushed back, I spoke up. Not emotionally, not angrily, just facts. Calm, direct, professional. There was a meeting, I remember it vividly. Conference room full. Tension thick. Our director asked why the project was behind. He started to explain, deflecting, reframing. Then the director turned to me and asked, "What's your take?" My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. I laid it all out. The risks I'd flagged, the alternatives I'd suggested, the responses I'd received. The room shifted. You could feel it. For the first time, people weren't looking past me. They were looking at me. The director nodded slowly and said, "Why wasn't this direction followed?" Silence. That was the moment. Not loud, not flashy, but decisive. After that, things changed. Not overnight, but noticeably. I was invited into conversations instead of added as an afterthought. My input was requested, not tolerated. And the colleague who doubted me. He stopped interrupting, stopped smirking. He never apologized, but he didn't have to. The dynamic spoke for itself. Here's what surprised me the most. The real victory wasn't the title or the salary. It was the way I started seeing myself. I stopped bracing for dismissal, stopped apologizing before speaking. I realized how much energy I'd wasted trying to be acceptable instead of being effective. Looking back, I think about that version of me in the parking lot, staring at the steering wheel, feeling invisible. I wish I could tell them this part. That losing that job wasn't the end. That being underestimated didn't mean being incapable. That sometimes the thing that feels like humiliation is actually a reset. And I also know this story isn't that simple. Not everyone gets a call. Not every system rewards honesty or courage. There are people who work just as hard and never get recognized, and that's real, that's unfair, and pretending otherwise helps no one. But I do believe this. The moment you stop agreeing with the version of yourself other people project onto you, everything starts to change. Even if the world doesn't shift immediately, you do. So here's my question to you. When you've been underestimated, what did you do? Did you push back, walk away, or stay silent? Was it fair, or was it just the way things are? And if you're honest, how much of your own power have you given away trying to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand, because these conversations matter more than we admit.